Present day. Present time.
Alright, DEI is running gaming, but not in the way that you actually think, and I'd like to go over and explain. Okay, for those who don't know, DEI stands for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. It's basically used to show inclusivity and just show people awareness, but sometimes it's not really done the right way, and I'd like to go over some of those. Okay, so let me give you a little background about me. I'm a bisexual gamer, and I like to think I have a unique perspective on this type of topic. I've dated people all over the spectrum. I've dated men, women, transgender women. I'm actually even currently married to a non-binary, gender fluid person. But the way the companies approach it, it does more damage than good. If you ask me, it's definitely doing way more damage. And inclusivity is not really the issue, it's the way that these companies represent it. They just, let's just be honest, they make it cringe. Like when they try to show inclusivity, it's represented in a way that it just makes it feel really forward. It just makes it feel like they're getting a quick cash grab. What really pisses me off overall is that they take it as not only as a quick cash grab, but they also use it to build kind of like a wall and say, and if someone doesn't agree when they deliver that bad product, they just want to call you a bigot or homophobe, which I think is something people are starting to speak more about. Then the worst part is that they pick this person who definitely to advocate for them, and it's like the worst representation. It's usually that one person that has like 20 different hair colors, doesn't know what they want in life, and oh my god, they just look crazy, honestly. And they have like that freaking Nazi personality that they just want to shove it down your throat. This is about a person that has like 20 different relationships in a year, and no one wants them because they're just a freaking nutcase. Oh wait, sorry. I didn't mean 20 different hair colors. I meant 20 different pronouns. And when they choose this type of people, they really give the LGBTQ a really bad name because most people don't want better rights like these people make it out to be. We just want to be treated equally like everyone else. We don't want better rights. We just want equal rights. These type of people, they always want to force their ideology down your throat. And honestly, I think that's so wrong. Like, those people don't have to agree with us or me. Like, as long as, they respect you, we could both coexist, even having different opinions. We don't have to live in such a one-sided world. Trust me, if everyone was the same in the world, it would be pretty boring. You're allowed to have different opinions. I have friends both on the right and the left side of a political party. And to be honest, I've never really felt like I belong to either right or left side of the political party. I always see things that I feel like I disagree on both sides of the political party. I always find like things I don't agree with, but they also have things from each side that I actually, agree with, but none of them is like in the middle type of thing. It's usually one side or the other. There's no middle ground. So essentially I end up feeling in a way politically homeless, if you kind of get what I mean by that. And I don't think you should let someone bully you to believe something that you don't. You should just speak your mind, even if they don't like it. It's freaking America after all. It's freedom of speech. You can say how you feel. Don't be afraid. You don't have to keep being afraid of these people. Like last year, I guess I'll say, the election was so bad, I ended up like not voting for either one. Like, let's start with Kamala. I feel like Kamala had no idea what she was doing due to the fact that she kept putting men down, which make no sense for me after all. Let me just explain this. So yes, a couple years ago, the LGBTQ were the minority, obviously, but the thing is, it's become so normalized that they're no longer the minority. The minority became basically men who are being put down and shamed by these groups. And if any of you listening, I apologize on their behalf. Men basically ended up getting discriminated, and it was really sad to see because I see so much of the hypocrisy of like, yeah, the LGBT got treated like this, but there's a new generation of men. Why are you trying to make them pay for something that their ancestors did that has nothing to do with them? That'll be me like blaming every white person because the Spangler, what they did to the Tainos. For those who know, that's the native race in Puerto Rico before the Spanglers came. And that doesn't even, like, that she did, statistically, it didn't even make sense. Because if the minority is the men, wouldn't you appeal to the men more? Because that would make sense. I mean, I'm not trying to be, like, scummy or anything, but a smart person will know that if men are the minority, you probably want to appeal and get them to vote for you. Because that's where the big change has to happen to create balance. And as for Trump, where did I even begin? I like this one thing he said that transgenders didn't even exist till a couple years ago. I call that fucking bullshit. Transgenders being around history since Babylonian times. So I don't know what he's on, but that's huge misinformation. Then it gets worse. He went out to take transgender rights away. Instead of taking their human rights away, because at this point, they're not even transgender rights. They're human rights. And he just wants to take them away instead of regulating them. When you think regulating them will actually make more sense in the long run? So now that we got that out of the way, let's start talking about why I really came here to talk. I don't know about you guys, but ever since Dragon Age Velgar, I've been really paranoid to buy a game. And I have this huge skepticism because the game was so bad and everything about it was just so mid that I ended up not even really thinking about it really hard before I buy a game. And I usually end up buying or playing a game that I already played that I was familiarized with, mostly older games. And in my freaking life of 20 years of gaming, I've never experienced a year with such bad games. We just fell so far, and I noticed this change during the pandemic. During the pandemic, a lot of people weren't working because, there's nothing to do. So people started buying a lot of games. And then these companies told themselves, oh, well, they're selling so much. This could be the best place you could invest your money on. And they started putting DEI stuff in a really bad way. Like, hey, look at me. This is mainstream. We're hip, like us. But they started sacrificing the quality of the game and what a good game was like just to get attention. And don't get me wrong, DEI always existed in games, even in older games, but it was approached and touched in a way different way. It was just telling you. Example, let's talk about Juhani and Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic 1. And for that, I'm going to let someone else tell the story because telling stories is not my strong suit.
Juhani was born on the planet Cathar in 3973 BBY, to two loving parents who wanted nothing but the best for their child. However, in the same year of her birth, the Mandalorians began to aggressively attack and destabilize planets in the Outer Rim. And in an act of vengeance against the Cathar people who fought alongside the Republic several decades earlier in the Exar Kun War, the Mandalorians swiftly engulfed the planet in fire and blood and committed mass genocide against the Cathar people who were unable to fight back. Juhani was only several months old as her planet burned. However, her parents had narrowly managed to escape the destruction of Cathar and fled to the planet Taris as refugees. However, being both a refugee and a non-human ensured that Juhani's life would not be one of peace or respect, but one of constant struggle to survive and speciesism. Although young, Juhani grew to hate the planet, considering it to be a rat hole. However, she understood that her life could have been much worse and considered Taris her home regardless. But at the age of 10, her struggle would only get worse as a Twi'lek man known as Zor, who fought with the Mandalorians at the genocide of Cathar, discovered Juhani and her family and provoked her father into a fight, who was murdered as a result. The bond between two Cathar was an extremely powerful thing, and the death of her partner had caused Juhani's mother to completely lose hope, and the light within her soul began to die. Despite working tirelessly to support herself and Juhani in a cantina, debts began to rack up, and she began to borrow money from the crime syndicate known as the Exchange. Because of their limited income, most food that they managed to get was given to Juhani, and one day her mother simply couldn't take it anymore, and she collapsed and died from exhaustion in the cantina where she worked. The Exchange then capitalized on this, taking Juhani in as a slave to pay back the debts that her mother owed, and in the slums of Taris, Juhani had hit the lowest point in her life. She was bound like an animal and treated like dirt. However, by this time, the Mandalorian Wars were raging across the galaxy, and Taris was conquered and controlled by the Mandalorians. Juhani in her time on Taris had heard tales of the Jedi, idolizing them for everything they stood for in an unjust world, and eventually the Republic, led by the Jedi Knight Revan, launched a liberation attempt on Taris to free it from the clutches of the Mandalorians. Revan himself led a group of Jedi into the Undercity to free the slaves, driving the Exchange away and giving hope to those who were suffering under their rule. Juhani herself was one of these very slaves that Revan saved, and Revan and his Jedi compatriots convinced the slaves to try and better their lives, and even convinced some that the Jedi Order could potentially be the answer. Juhani was utterly enthralled by Revan, his words and his heroism, and vowed to become a Jedi like her idol. Knowing that there was some Force sensitivity within her blood, Juhani gathered as much money as she could and boarded the first freighter to Dantooine, and was taken in by the Jedi Master Quattro as her Padawan. But becoming a Jedi was more difficult than she had thought. The aggression within her Cathar blood made it difficult for her to control her emotions, and as such she began to feel that her dream of becoming a Jedi was futile. In the early years of being in the Enclave, she grew close to another Padawan called Dak Vesser, who arrived at the Enclave at the same time as her. Dak also shared doubts about the Jedi and his place within the Order, and as such, the two confided in each other. However, Dak eventually became completely disillusioned and began to fall in love with Juhani. He eventually confessed his feelings and begged Juhani to leave the Enclave with him. However, Juhani didn't feel the same way, and Dak left heartbroken and angry. Juhani spent the next several years training under Quattro and befriended another Jedi known as Belaya. The two became extremely close, and the two women would often spend their time and nights together. The full extent of this relationship caused concern to the Jedi Order, believing it to be a weakness between the two, and they also feared the possibility that their relationship was more than a friendship, a path which could lead to the dark side. As time passed, Juhani completed her training, and Quattro knew that she had nothing left to teach her. Her final test would be teaching Juhani her own limits as both a Cathar and a Jedi. Quattro created a false scenario for Juhani, and as the two got into an extremely heated argument, this heated argument turned into violence, and Juhani in a fit of rage attacked her master and seemingly killed her. Once Juhani had came to the realization of what she had done, she felt nothing but despair and gave into the dark side of the Force. She then escaped the Jedi Enclave and hid in an ancient meditation grove nearby, and her pain began to taint the surrounding area, causing the animals and beasts to become aggressive and affected by the dark side of the Force. Juhani spent some time alone in this grove, truly believing that she was beyond saving, even going as far as to adopt a new red lightsaber to convince herself. However, a young Jedi Padawan arrived at the grove to redeem her and bring her back to the Order, to which Juhani refused. She instead froze the Jedi's companions and ignited her lightsaber, engaging in a vicious duel to which she was easily defeated. Shocked that even the power of the dark side was unable to beat this young Jedi, Juhani begged to be killed. However, the Jedi man refused, showing Juhani the error of her ways, and it was in this moment that she realized what her master was trying to teach her. Thanks to this Jedi's intervention, Juhani returned to the council and begged for forgiveness, but she was shocked but understanding after she learned that Quattro had feigned her death, and she had already left Dantooine to begin training other students, fully believing in Juhani and that she would overcome the test. Juhani's training was now complete, and she was given the title of Jedi Knight along with the Jedi who saved her life in the Grove, and although she wore the scars of the dark side, the lessons would be invaluable to her. She asked the Jedi Council if she could accompany the Jedi man that saved her on his mission to discover the star maps dotted around the galaxy. She believed her experience with falling to the dark side could be invaluable to those that she travelled with, and as such the Jedi agreed and let Juhani leave.
Okay, right here we could see a proper story, how you properly tell a story of an LGBTQ character. Okay, so let a bond between the guy and the girl, and she basically tells him the problems that is more like a shoulder, like someone to bend with, but it plays right into the story. It doesn't feel forced. It feels like it just flows better. So he basically helps her resist the temptations of the dark side. See, in this story, we could see how well developed this LGBT character was, and it didn't just revolve about them being gay, but a tragic background and a character that you could relate while still keeping inclusivity but not sacrificing the story. And people actually relate to this story, and no one complained about it. Like, everything was fine. And keep in mind, this was during a time that LGBT inclusiveness was not accepted. You'll get bullied in school for this type of shit, and people accepted it because the story was actually good, you know? But if you write a story properly, people are not gonna mind it as long as the story is good, you know? I feel that game developers were way more careful back then, because back then you only had one chance to make a good game, and if you screw that first time, your career was basically over. It was done for you. You're a cook. That's why they were like way more careful with how they approach certain topics. And you know, the crazy thing is, this is not even the whole game. This is literally the story of a side character, not even a main character. And that was just a side character. Imagine if those who haven't played it actually played through the whole game. And honestly, if you really want to play a proper inclusive game, play Star Wars The Old Republic 1. Trust me, you won't regret it. So when these games like Dragon Age try to hide behind that wall and just calling people bigots and homophobe, it offends me as a gamer, not only as a gamer, as part of the LGBTQ community. And to be honest, they make us look stupid. They make us look like we're all like that, like we're all authoritarian and want to shove this ideology down your throat like we're some sort of Nazi during World War II. They try to turn it into like this propaganda. It's just so like, it's so bad for the community. And it feels so forced. It feels like they're like, hey, I'm doing something good, give me some brownie points. Doesn't even feel like they're doing it to actually be inclusive. Just doing it to get their pockets full of cash. It's like using someone. And like I said before, these corporations literally just want to fill their pockets. They don't actually care about us or inclusivity. They only care if it benefits them. They're trying to freaking please I call them the unofficial Twitter mod that aren't even gonna buy their games. And guess what? Us that belong to the LGBT community, we don't play no different games from you guys. We basically play the same games. We just want a good story, like a good game. We don't care whether there's a gay character in the story or not. As long as the game is good, that's all that matters. But from this game, you can literally see that when the game studios balance the story and the LGBTs, like when everything is balanced, it just flows better. And there's not gonna be, like, you can't, if you make a bad game, don't expect to hide behind a freaking wall. It's not gonna work. It really is not. So at the end of the day, DEI is not the problem. The problem is how those companies decide to represent it. Like, the way that they implement it is most important, and you can't just dismiss the rest and just try to say you're not valid to criticism because you put that in your game. That doesn't work. I don't know who the heck told them that's gonna work, but that's just not how the world works. This is it for today, guys and girls. If you like this video, give it a like and tell me what you think in the comment section. If you disagree with me, tell me. I want to hear. Or if I missed something, just tell me what, if I forgot to touch on something or what I could implement to make it better. I like to hear you guys' opinion. And also don't forget to actually check the original video of the lore if you're interested in it. I'll leave it in the description. Until next time, take care.